And a quick aside note for the record, it's not Valentine's Day with an N, an M, okay? It's not Valentine's Day, it's Valentine's Day. You know, some folks ask you, what y'all doing for Valentine's Day? Nothing, because I've never heard of Valentine's Day. What's up, YouTube? I'm Darren, the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. I'm gonna be talking about 12 fragrances, 12 great rose fragrances from my collection. Well, that's not a good title. I wanna call it A Dozen Roses for Valentine's Day. How about that? That's why I'm going to be talking about 12 amazing rose fragrances from my collection that I think is great to wear on Valentine's Day. I mean, it's the day of love, right? And fellas, on Valentine's Day, women love to get and receive a dozen roses. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And a quick aside note for the record, it's not Valentine's Day with an N, an M, okay? It's not Valentine's Day, it's Valentine's Day. You know, some folks ask you, what y'all doing for Valentine's Day? Nothing, because I've never heard of Valentine's Day. all right, I'm gonna leave you guys alone that say that, all right? But seriously, stop doing that, all right? Don't say that anymore. Don't do it. So if you want to see what made the list of 12 amazing, well, that's not the title. If you want to see what made the list of a dozen roses for Valentine's Day, then you know the routine. Keep it locked right here. All right, guys, we're back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked in. We're going to go ahead and jump into this video. As I said, my name is Darren. I'm the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. I talk about fragrance as well as fashion on this channel. So if you like looking good and smelling great, or one or both, consider hitting the subscribe button, and also make sure you hit the bell icon as well so that you get notified when I upload new content on the channel. All right, guys, so the first fragrance up, I'm actually going to give a quick honorable mention. And I'm going to give an honorable mention for this fragrance because, well, I'll tell you in a second, but the fragrance is from the house of by Kilian, and this is called A Kiss from a Rose. A Kiss from a Rose. All right, let's go ahead and get it out of the way. I know the song popped into your head. If I can hear a kiss from, get it out of your system. Let's move on with the video. Now, the reason that this is actually just an honorable mention, because I will admit the first 30 minutes of this really leans feminine. And I know my watching audience, my viewing audience is predominantly male. So I know a lot of you probably won't even give this fragrance a chance. But number one, if you give it a chance, you'll see that it really starts to lean more back right along that 50-50 line as it dries down. Because when it dry down, you have musk and you have bergamota. So it really starts to get a little bit more masculine when it dries down. But I understand some guys aren't going to want to wait that long to really enjoy a fragrance. But I will tell you this, I like to use this fragrance to really layer with rose fragrances that are really, really heavy with oud. There's a few on this list, and I will mention that when I get to it. But because I know, again, that most guys probably won't rock with a fragrance like this, although I really love it, I wanted to give it as an honorable mention. But it's really, really good if you like a more green rose, more floral. So check this one out. It's from the house by Kilian, and this is called A Kiss from a Rose. All right, guys, so in the 12th spot on this list of a dozen roses for Valentine's Day, this fragrance comes from an indie house by a gentleman by the name of Matthew Malik. And this fragrance is called Very Cherry Rose. Very Cherry Rose. Now, this fragrance actually features 4 different kinds of patchouli. If you know anything about the note of patchouli, it has a tendency in fragrances to come off either really earthy, and that's that hippie vibe that folks talk about, or it can come off kind of chocolatey, right? I think there's all of that in this fragrance right here. In addition to the patchouli, it also, of course, features the note of rose, and there is a black cherry accord in the opening. Amazing scent. Definitely one that you need to check out. Put this on your list of fragrances to try. I do know that he has it available on his site, but also Scent Split, I think, has this where you can sample it. You know, so if you like rose fragrances with chocolate, cherry, this is one that you need to check out from the house of Matthew Malik. This is called Very Cherry Rose. All right, guys, the next fragrance up on the list in the 11th spot, this one comes from the house of Givenchy, and this is called Water Sina. Wardacina. Now, this is a fragrance that nobody really talks about. Now, I also have More Than Words from Giorgio, which is an amazing rose fragrance, but I wanted to highlight this one because nobody really talks about this one. You know, a lot of people mention More Than Words, which again, I 100% agree. It's an amazing rose fragrance, but this one is really nice as well. But I think where this loses a lot of folks is the fact that, and the opening is very green. It's very green and dry, and that can really be off-putting to some folks. But guys, I'm telling you, you wait till it dries down. That's when the magic happens. You kind of have this slightly powdery tobacco leaves in this fragrance, and it combines with vanilla. So that vanilla is really sweet and really creamy. Works really well with that powdery iris, with that kind of powdery vibe, not iris, but the powdery vibe that you get from the tobacco leaves in this fragrance. Check it out, man. Get past the first 5 minutes and give it a shot, because as it dries down, that's when the magic happens. From the house of Giorgio, again, this one is called Wardacina. And this bottle is absolutely gorgeous, by the way. Check it out. All right, coming in at the 10th spot on this list, this fragrance comes from the house of Parfums de Marly, and this is called a Castor. A Castor, and this is another one that a lot of folks don't really talk about. When you hear a lot of people talk about rose oud fragrances, a lot of people don't really mention this particular scent. Now, I personally think there's several reasons for that. Number one, this fragrance was released at the same time as Carlisle, and Carlisle, being the great fragrance that it is, got most of the attention out of those two fragrance releases. This one was kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the two. So I think that contributes to it, but also when you really look at this fragrance, a lot of people don't like the opening of this fragrance, and I get it. It opens up with cypress. So just like I talked about with the previous fragrance, Wardacina, some people don't really like the opening of this, and I will admit, I can see how it could turn some folks off. But it lasts only about 5 minutes. There's a cypress and lemon opening. But man, when it gets to the rose, of course, the oud, and on the dry down this, you get a lot of musk. It's not animalic by any means, but again, it really works to really bring some balance to the oud rose combination in this scent, and it's really good, man. Now, what I love about this one as well is a very unique note of praline. Now, you usually don't find praline in a fragrance like this, but as it dries down, that praline brings some sweetness, almost gourmand sweetness to this scent, and it's something that I think more people really need to experience. This is an amazing fragrance, man. Ignore the first 5 minutes and enjoy this one from the house of Parfums de Marly. Again, this is called a Castor. All right, guys, next up on the list, this one comes from the house of Armani, from the Armani Privé collection. This is Rose d'Arabie. Rose d'Arabie. And it comes in at the 9th spot because as good as this fragrance is, you know, I talked about some of the unique factors from the others. This one is a little bit more of the typical rose oud fragrance, and it's the only reason I have it at the 9th spot. But you'll see there's some bangers on this list, so it's not saying a bad thing about this fragrance, but it's a little bit more typical what you're used to, maybe accustomed to smelling from fragrances that feature the notes of rose and oud. Rose, oud, patchouli, vanilla, some of the main notes in this, and it's good. Again, it's good. But there's some others on this list that's a little bit more unique and special to me. So that's the only reason that it's in the 9th spot, but it's great. It performs well, and it's a good rose fragrance. So this one, again, is from the house of Giorgio Armani, the Armani Privé collection. This is called Rose d'Arabie. All right, now coming in at the 8th spot on this list, this fragrance comes from the house of Atelier des Ors, and this is called Rose Omeade. Rose Omeade. Now, I just kind of talked about unique factor. This is a very unique rose oud fragrance. It opens up with rose and raspberry, and the opening is kind of reminiscent to what I get from Vain and Naive from the house of Nichane. It has the same rose, it has that same opening that really features and highlights that note of a raspberry in the opening. And again, I like it. But that's not the star player in this. What really makes this a unique scent, can we please cue up the D'Angelo song, please? I want some of your brown sugar. Some brown sugar in this fragrance right here. And that really gives this a unique kind of sweet, sugary overtone with the rose. Now, when it dries down, of course, this fragrance, goes into a very, I would say, creamy direction, because you have sandalwood and some warm amber, and that really gives it some more sweetness. But guys, this thing is something that you really need to get your nose on, because again, it's kind of unique, especially because of the brown sugar accord in this fragrance. So make sure you check this one out if you're looking for a rose oud fragrance that has a little bit of a unique twist to it. Check this one out from Atelier des Ors. This one is called Rose Omiyade. All right, coming in at the 7th spot on this list, this one comes from the house of Amouage, and this is, of course, Lyric Man. Lyric Man. This fragrance is, dang, this is almost gone for real. I need another bottle of this. This is one of my favorite fragrances. This one actually turned me on to the note of rose, because when I first really got started into collecting, I really, kind of felt like rose was a more female dominant note, used more in female fragrances, which, I guess the case is still the same. A lot of female fragrances do feature rose, but it made me as a male really come to the terms with the fact that I can wear a rose fragrance, and this one got me started, and I've never looked back. As you guys know, I really love fragrances that are featured in the note of rose, and this has a lot to do with it. Very fresh, green, and spicy rose scent. It opens up with that brightness, lime, bergamot opening. It's very green and spicy. There's some galbanum in here, as well as some other spices. But of course, the highlight of this is the rose and the incense, really, to my nose. Oh man, fresh, green, spicy rose. That's really what the best way to describe this scent. And again, I really, really appreciate this fragrance for opening my mind up to the whole idea of wearing a rose-based fragrance. So, coming in at the 7th spot from the house of Amouage, this is called Lyric Man. Now, coming in at the 6th spot on this list, this one comes from the house of Christian Dior, and this is called Ombre Nuit. Ombre Nuit. What I love about this scent compared to the other fragrances on this list, is the fact that the rose is a little bit more understated. With the other ones, the rose is like a tint, hut, front and center, is right in your face, and this one again blends really well with the other notes in this scent. I really feel like the rose note, although understated, is enhanced just a little bit by the pink pepper in the scent, but when it dries down, you get some ambergris and patchouli, and I really, really love this scent. It's creamy, spicy, and I love that. If you think about Fève Délicieuse from this house, this is kind of like, in some way, more of an understated version of Fève Délicieuse, where that may be a bit much for some people, the sweetness in that. There's just the right amount of sweetness in Ombre Nuit, giving it that sexy vibe. So make sure you check this one out, guys. If you like a more understated rose, then check out Ombre Nuit from the house of Christian Dior. All right, now coming in at the 5th spot on this list, this one is from the house of Bond number 9. You know what it is. This is New York Oud. New York Oud. Oh man, the opening of this fragrance, the rose, the plum, and the saffron. The plum in this fragrance gives this almost bitter sweetness, this bitter fruity sweetness that I just really, really love the way that it smells with the saffron, how it combines with the saffron in the scent. Of course, when it dries down, you got, of course, the oud, the rose. Oh man, I think patchouli is in this as well, oud, rose, and patchouli. But this stuff is just this is one of my favorites, and the fact that it's in the 5th spot tells you that there's definitely some heat that are in the top 4. One that I'll always love and cherish from the house of Bond number 9. This is called New York Oud. All right, guys, coming in at the 4th spot on this list, this fragrance comes from the house of Louis Vuitton, and this is Ombre Nomade. Ombre Nomade. 1 or 2 sprays is all you need. This is extremely smoky, and that turns some people off. I get it, but I can't help it. For some reason, I love this scent. The smokiness from this in this scent is coming from incense, saffron, and the birch. So it's really, 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 really smoky when it opens up, and that's mostly what you get with rose. Until you give it a few minutes, man, and actually get there's some geranium in here, there's some raspberry in here as well. And these elements do start to peek through as the fragrance really starts to really develop and dry down. It balances it out a little bit, but this is a really smoky rose scent. And earlier I talked about A Kiss from a Rose by Kilian. This is one of the fragrances that I like to do 2 sprays of this to really brighten up the rose in this scent And that's a magical combination. So that's just a quick tip from me. But I love this smoky rose fragrance from the house of Louis Vuitton, and that's why it's on the list at the 4th spot. Again, this is called Ombre Noir. All right, guys, now coming in at the 3rd spot on this list, this fragrance comes from the house of Roger Parfums, and this is called Amber Oud. Amber Oud, man, what a masterpiece of a rose fragrance this is. It opens up, you get this freshness in the opening. I think there's lime, bergamot in the opening of this, in the rose. So that's really what you get out the gate, rose, lime, bergamot. So it's kind of fresh in the opening. But then you get this really creamy vibe that starts to really take over the scent and mixes with the rose, and that's really coming from the floral in this. It uses ylang-ylang, jasmine, and fig, so it really gets creamy. To me, that's one of the things I could say about fig. To me, a lot of times in fragrances, it gives it this kind of fruity, creamy vibe. So this really gets kind of creamy when it starts to dry down. Then, of course, you have oak moss, patchouli, oud, as it dries all the way down. And this is just, again, the only way I can describe this is that it's like fine wine. It reminds me of fine wine, and that's the best way to describe this scent. But again, when you talk about rose oud fragrances, it's really, really hard to beat this one. And it's one I highly recommend. So get a sample of it. I know it's expensive, but get a sample of it. If you love rose oud fragrances, you'll love this one from the house of Roger Parfums. This is called Amber Oud. All right, so coming in at the number 2 spot on this list, this one comes from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian. You already know what it is, man. Stop playing. This is called Oud Satin Mood. Oud Satin Mood, Bulgarian rose, Turkish rose, violet, benzoin, vanilla. Amazing rose fragrance. What else can I say? This is one of the sexiest of the bunch. Oh, man. Probably only second place to my number 1 fragrance as it relates to sexy rose fragrances. So I talk about this one a lot, so I don't want to go on and on about it. But you know what this is and what it does from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian. This is called Oud Satin Mood. All right, guys, and coming in at the number 1 spot, you know what it is. Go ahead and say it with me. Portrait of a Man. Portrait of a Man from the house of Frederic Malle. I talk about this all the time, so I'm gonna say less. You know what this is, you know what it does, and you know why it's the number 1 rose fragrance in my collection. So if you don't have it, I recommend you check it out. Again, from the house of Frederic Malle. Some of you may call this Portrait of a Lady, but I call it Portrait of a Man. All right, guys, that's it. That's my time. I hope you enjoyed this list today, as I gave you a dozen roses on Valentine's Day. As always, I appreciate your time and your attention to these videos. You don't have to watch, but you do, and I sincerely appreciate that. And don't forget to take a few moments to go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and share these videos out to some other folks that you think could use this information or find it entertaining. Because I'm your guy, the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. I love to look good, and of course, I love to smell amazing. So until next time, guys, keep looking good, keep smelling even better. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.